make a recipe that I have in my Touring Vegan book. It's a baked potato recipe with a red lentil sauce. So for this one, you can use any sort of potato you want. I have a bunch of these purple potatoes, and I've got some russet potatoes. There's more than what you see here. You're going to need an onion for the sauce. You're going to need some red lentils. And you're going to need a few different spices. So basil being the main one. Some garlic powder. A little bit of salt and pepper. And also, I like to color the sauce. This tomato paste doesn't add as much flavor, but it certainly makes the sauce look a lot nicer. So I add that to it, and it really makes it a vibrant red. And for the base of the sauce, we're going to use some plain oat milk. You can use soy milk too, that's fine. And we'll need to thicken it with some flour too. So you can use unbleached white flour, you can use whole wheat flour. It's mainly for a thickening agent. You could use arrowroot or cornstarch as well. And what else? Oh yeah, on the side there's some green beans that I need to eat. So I'm gonna steam these up and maybe add a little bit of this dark soy sauce to that. Because I don't have my silicone baking sheets, I'm gonna have to use a little bit of oil when I prepare the baked potatoes, but I typically don't use a lot of oil in my cooking, and I explain all that in my book as well too. So I try to keep the fat content fairly low, but we're not going to use a whole lot. We're going to just mainly be coating the pan with a little bit of oil. And I'm going to chop some vegetables up, and I'll see you in a moment. All right, what's happening? We're back, and all right, so I chopped up all of the potatoes. It looks really cool with the purple and the white ones there. And I set the oven to 415 degrees. And we'll just put these in here. And we're gonna let those bake for about, I'd say maybe roughly 20 minutes, but we'll check on it after 15. And you want them to have a nice little bit of a golden brown on the skin. So that will allow you to know when it's done, and especially too if they're fork tender. So we'll check on those in a moment. In the meantime, we'll get the lentils going. I've got a cup of red lentils, and we will do a cup and a half of water. Actually, I'm gonna do 2 cups of water. Like a little bit more than that. I typically don't measure a lot of my stuff, but I make, because I can kind of eyeball a lot of this, but for measurement's sake, we're going to do a 1-to-2 ratio of lentils to water. And we'll go ahead and heat this up. And we'll bring this to a boil. A gentle boil. You don't want it to super, be going like super crazy, because then you'll notice that it will explode out of the pot. So we're going to let this bubble slightly, and then we're going to bring down the temperature. And I'll be back in a moment. All right, so I'm checking on these lentils here. All right, so yeah, they're boiling now. We want to turn the flame down a bit. So we're going to bring that to a very low flame, because we don't want this to explode out of the pot. So just let that simmer. Check on the pot. Don't leave it. Don't go off and listen to records or something like that. Just keep watching the food at this point. These are going to cook really fast. All right, I'll be back in a moment. All right, so the red lentils are done. You can see that the water's absorbed. So I'm going to remove this from the stove range and just place it in a bowl. I'm going to clean this out, and then we're going to reuse this saucepan to make the red lentil sauce. We're also going to check on the potatoes, and so they're all looking pretty good. They still need some more time, probably another 5-10 minutes. And let's see. So I'll be back in just a moment. All right, so we're going to heat up the saucepan, and we're going to go ahead and add the chopped onion. We're we're going to lightly saute that for a moment. Alright, so we're going to also make the green beans right now too. So I'm going to go ahead and light up another burner here. And I've already chopped up and cleaned the green beans, so just chop the ends up. We'll heat that up for a moment, and I'll have a little bit of water. We're gonna lightly steam these, and then I'm gonna add a little soy sauce to them as well. So we'll let that heat up for a moment. Add a little bit of water. Let that come to a simmer. In the meantime, doing a little juggling over here. Saute these onions up, and you can add a little bit of water if it starts to stick. If you got if you're using a non-stick pan, they still might stick a little bit. So add just a little bit of water there. And let those saute a little bit longer so that the onions become translucent. This is about ready. We'll add a little bit of some soy sauce to the mix. And we'll just add the green beans right in there. Toss that up a little bit. And I'm going to put a lid on there because I want it to steam. So the next move, when the onions are a bit more translucent, we're going to add a little bit of basil. We're going to add the garlic powder. You can use raw garlic too if you want. Just chop that up. I'm just using what I have on hand. And then we'll add just a little bit of salt and pepper to that. I'm going to move fast. That's why I'm just kind of telling you in advance. At that point, we'll add probably about, let's see, we're going to do about 1.5 cups of oat milk. And then we'll add a little bit of flour too, probably about a tablespoon to help thicken the sauce up. So now that this is starting to simmer, I'm going to bring the heat down a touch. Add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. All right, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to let that hang out for a moment. So yeah, obviously I wouldn't be making this on tour. This would be way too difficult, and most likely I'm not going to be in a situation where I have a stove to work with or an oven. I mean, occasionally you have that situation. There'll be venues that have kitchens and whatnot, but you're probably going to have a difficult time convincing them that you want to use it. So anyway, that's why I do most of the recipes that I show you in my drum studio, because you can bring an appliance with you and you can usually set up backstage or outside or on your tour bus and just make a one-pot meal, and that will last you the whole day. But occasionally I like to make something that I would make when I'm not on the road and use more ingredients and just different cooking techniques. Alright, so there's the onions. Oops, I gotta bring the heat back up. There's the green beans. They're just sauteing in there. And let's go ahead and add the lentils. We're going to add I need one more arm to make this work out appropriately. We're gonna add about a spoonful of basil. Sorry for the shakiness here. We're gonna add about a teaspoon and a half of garlic powder. And here comes the oat milk. We're gonna let that simmer for a moment. And I'm actually gonna add the tomato paste right now. So just put like about a teaspoon or two of this in there. Sorry for the bad angle, I'm trying to use both hands. And we'll stir that around. Actually, with this turned out really thick on its own. You can add a little bit of flour if it is a little bit thinner. I think I'm going to still add just some, just so that it's not totally runny on top of the potatoes. I'll be right. All right, so a spoonful of flour, and we'll just stir that around. If you have a whisk too, that will help break up all the lumps. So yeah, just make that nice and thick. All right, so the potatoes are done. Let's see, I'll just pick one up. You can kind of see how they're golden brown right there, and they are fork tender. I'll even take a spoon to show you that you should be able to take a fork or a spoon and just go right through them. So you can see how it's golden brown there too. So that's a sign that we're all good to go. And here are those green beans. Here are the lentils. So I'm gonna lay down some potatoes, put some lentil sauce on it, and then have a side of the green beans. So I'll show you. And there you go. The steam sensation. Yeah, you can see all that steam coming up. Yeah, so that's what it should look like at the end. And let's hope it tastes good. Just kidding, it will taste good. All right, thanks.